Welcome back to In the Garden. I am joined here with Greg from Grange Co-op, and we're continuing to talk about planting tomatoes, but this is a different type of planting tomatoes. We're using a cage and a planter box. Where do we start?
Yeah, so this is specifically if we're going to be doing kinds that are vine type, or the kinds of tomatoes that get really big, grow until they die, produce until they die. The really big variety is the kind we want to use for a cage. So what we're going to do, what we have here is a early girl tomato, which is probably the most common, most favored. People grow more early girls than I think any other kind of variety. What we want to do is we want to dig, first of all, we want to dig a big hole. We want to dig a deep, deep hole.
Can I start?
Yep, go ahead.
Alrighty.
So we have already pre-amended our soil here with Harvest Supreme. This is a really good nutrient-dense compost that we want to be putting in our beds. Tomatoes are heavy, heavy feeders, so they really want good soil with a lot of nutrient value to those. So we have already pre-amended our soil with Harvest Supreme and already put in our fertilizer. The fertilizer that we want to be using is one that specifically says tomato on the label. The reason for that is that it has some extra calcium added to keep your plants from getting blossom and rot. So really important to be using a fertilizer that says tomato on the label. So we want to dig a big hole, and here's the thing with tomatoes that's cool, different from tomatoes than any other kind of plant you're probably going to plant, is that most plants you only want to plant them as deep as they already are on the pot, and that's because they need some air circulation around the base, and if you plant them too deep you're going to have problems with funguses, or the plants are just going to die out because of a myriad reasons. But a tomato plant has little hairs on the side of the stem, and if you plant those under the soil level, those will turn into roots. And so we can get in a really good, strong root system by planting our plant extra deep. It might not look as tall after we're done planting it as it does in the pot here, but that will really give your plant a good start and give it a lot bigger root system that over time will pay dividends. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to pop this guy out. We've already got a really nice deep hole here. We're going to stick it in the hole. Here's the other thing with tomatoes. You can plant them straight up like this. You can also, some people will plant them like this on their side. You can do them either way, as long as what's underneath this soil level here, whatever's under the soil level is going to produce those new roots. So this time we're just going to put it in. Like I said, we're planting that deeper, as you can tell, in the ground than where we were in the pot. And then we're just going to be covering it around like this. Like I said, so we patted in there. It was quite a bit of a taller plant. We put it in. It looks shorter now because we did that, but that gives us that extra root mass. Now, here's the other thing we want to do.
This guy right here.
Yeah, so that is a vine type tomato that's going to get really big, really fast. It's going to grow. We need to make sure and put a good cage around this tomato plant. So we put a cage around the plant that gives it support so it doesn't fall over. A big plant like this definitely will. So we want to make sure, put a cage around it, and then as that grows up through it, we want to kind of be making sure that we're kind of fluffing the leaves through it, making sure that we're getting that good making sure that we've got it so that it's kind of uniformly growing throughout the cage. Really important on a vine type tomato like this.
These plants, you said, grow super fast.
Yes.
When do you think we're going to start seeing blooms of tomatoes?
So it depends a little bit on the variety, but tomatoes, they will start producing blooms fairly quickly. In fact, a plant this size could already have some blooms on it. I recommend at the beginning, as we're still trying to get more green growth, I usually recommend pulling some of those first flowers off so the plant focuses on getting big before it starts producing a lot of fruit. It will do both at the same time, but it's a good idea to kind of let it get up to size before you're really getting that production going. It is important to put the cage on at the time you plant it or very shortly thereafter, because as that plant grows, you can damage it when you put the plant by putting the cage on it after the fact, or sometimes, not very often, but every once in a while, your little stake that will hit the root and you can damage some roots doing it that way. But always put it on as early as you can in the planting process. Don't wait for the plant to get big. And before you know it, it'll be coming out the top.
So if you are also interested in planting some tomatoes yourself, you can always go to a Grange Co-op store and ask Craig for help if you need help. But of course, you can always check for more information on our website at KDRV.com. Thanks for joining us in the garden.